Welcome to the Curators Salon podcast. I'm Geeta Joshi, and in this episode, I'm talking to William G. Robinson, one of the curators of the Picasso and Paper exhibition currently showing at the Royal Academy in London. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So this is a wonderful exhibition and so much better than I thought it would be. How long was that show in preparation?
About 4 years, and it took an incredible amount of work. We spent a lot of time in archives, especially in Paris, looking at things that in some cases have never been seen before, that were even uncatalogued. But that's the joy of doing my job, it's the pleasure of discovery.
And what was it like working with other institutions? Because I've only ever experienced working in the commercial arena.
Well, I've worked with both of these museums before, the Musée Picasso in Paris and the Royal Academy in London, and they are maybe my favorite people to work with. I love the RA. They do great shows. The staff is fantastic. I have fantastic colleagues there. I love working with them. I've been writing about Picasso for about 30 years. This is my fourth Picasso exhibition, and I've seen the staff change there. First of all, they have an incredible collection. If you really want to do a good Picasso show, you have to use the Picasso Museum in Paris because that's the legacy of the families, that's his personal collections, and the depth of what they have is just extraordinary. And they have wonderful people to work with, very collegial and helpful, and they know a lot. So we have interesting discussions and dialogues about his work and what we find things and what do we think it means, because it often requires interpretation. And in this case, we're even finding things in the archives because they were part of his personal holdings when he died. And the question is that by Picasso? Is that something So lots of interesting conversations going on back and forth, and dealing with such a fantastic staff is essential.
That all makes it sound like it was really easy to do. So were there any difficulties, or what would you say were the lessons learned working with other institutions, especially given they're in different countries?
Well, in this case, there really weren't difficulties. We thought along the same lines. Projects always evolve. You start out with an idea, in this case, which was to do an exhibition of just works on paper. But as we began to think about this, we understood that they needed context. So we have works that are made with paper, sculptures and things of that sort. But then again, we wanted to contextualize these works. So how do you show certain sketches related to a great painting if you don't have the painting? What does this mean? So things are always progressing and evolving. I have worked, frankly, on projects with people who are difficult and contentious, but not in this case. I just love my colleagues working on this project, and I don't know, maybe the results reflect that. I don't know, but this was a great experience for me. And I'll mention I had one other great experience working with the RA. I also worked with curator Anne Dumas on the Painting the Modern Garden, Monet to Matisse. That was another fantastic collaboration. And, there's nothing better than working with a great colleague. Nothing.
So it's a really large exhibition. Is all the work in the show from the three museums, or have you got work loaned from other private collections and places as well?
The bulk of the exhibition comes from the Musée Picasso in Paris, but we do have other lenders. My museum in Cleveland is a very significant lender, and one of the things that makes me very happy about this show is that I think our Picasso collection, which is one of the best in the United States, is not as well known as it should be. So you will see our great Blue Period painting, La Vie, or the great Rose Period painting, The Harem, but there are also drawings and other paintings, and so we're a significant contributor. We also borrowed some things from other museums. Philadelphia lent us a very important work. The Metropolitan in New York did. And we borrowed some things from private collections. Don't let me forget the Reina Sofia in Madrid, which lent some of the drawings for Guernica. And that's really important because they have all of the drawings. And we're very lucky to have those. They were crucial to our show. And we borrowed a few things from members of the Picasso family.
How did Cleveland Museum of Art come to have such a large collection of Picasso drawings and paintings?
Well, let me first say the collection isn't extremely large, but the quality is extraordinary. That's part of it. We are a major collecting institution, but many of the things came by gift. The Harem came from a trustee who bought this. It was part of his personal collection in the 1920s, which is really quite extraordinary. There is an interesting story behind La Vie, Life, which is Picasso's greatest painting of the Blue Period. That was actually deaccessioned by another museum. believe it or not. Picasso painted it in 1903. It sort of disappeared from the art world for a long time. Then it resurfaced in the 30s, and in the late 30s, the Rhode Island School of Design bought it. And then they had a new director who didn't like it, and he decided to sell it. And our director at the time was astonished. He said, "Who would ever sell a painting like that?" But luckily, we were the first in the door, and we bought it on the spot. Which there's a whole background behind that, but it's really quite remarkable that painting is here. And sometimes you just get lucky.
That's such a good story. So, which is your favourite piece in this exhibition? And actually, while I'm here, how many pieces does this exhibition have? Because it feels like, with the notebooks and the little
Right.
cutouts and the sketches on napkins and all sorts of things, there must be hundreds.
There's over 300. I was told it's 365, but I didn't count them individually. But it's way over 300. As far as favorite works, there are so many. I don't know. That's a question I almost can't answer because I have these moments. And of course, a painting that is a work, it's actually a large papier collé that's astonishing, is The Women at the Toilet, which is this huge painting that was done during the period of the Spanish Civil War. And it appears to depict three very important women in Picasso's life at the time. But it is made out of these pieces of wallpaper that Picasso himself collected. And it is an extraordinary collage and really an interesting painting. And one of the things I like about the way we displayed it here is you see it in the context of other works done during the Spanish Civil War, which of course is something that Picasso was very invested in. He's living in Paris. There's this war raging in his homeland. Of course, he has family there. And everybody knows about how Picasso responded to the war in Guernica, his great anti-war painting, but they don't know about this painting. And actually, you discover these things. There's a close relationship between Guernica and this large collage. For example, we know that when Picasso was working on Guernica, because his companion Dora Maar took photographs of it as it was being made, that at certain points Picasso took pieces of cut paper and put them on the canvas, and some of those pieces of paper appear in the large Women at their Toilet. And the women in that painting too you see them in various stages of fright and anxiety, and unless you kind of look at what Picasso was doing on other works at the time, there's, for example, the Weeping Woman series, which is directly related to Guernica and the angst of the period after the bombing of the Basque city of Guernica. You kind of don't understand what's going on in that big collage. So for me, showing that painting in the context that we have is important for unlocking its meaning.
That's such an incredible piece. I don't think I'd ever seen that one in real life before as well. It's huge, like 5 meters almost.
Yes.
So from the exhibition, it's very clear how prolific he was. As a scholar of Picasso's work, how much do you think he was, making every day or every week?
His output is incredible. It's mind-boggling. I mean, if you look at the output that we know of a Renaissance artist, it may be a handful of things, maybe a bit more. If you look at the Catalogue Raisonné, this is, of course, a book that documents all of the known work of an artist. Monet's Catalogue Raisonné is 3 volumes. Picasso's, first of all, there are multiple Catalogue Raisonnés, but the main one is 33 volumes, and it doesn't begin to touch the surface. And there are Catalogue Raisonnés for every part of his production, whether it's prints or there's one for sculpture. The amount of work that he did is absolutely staggering, and I assume he is the most prolific artist of the 20th century, maybe in the history of art. And it's funny that you bring this up because there was one small criticism of the show, and one reviewer said it was slightly too big. We had the opposite view because we couldn't, we knew that if you're dealing with Picasso, and of course he works over a long period of time in so many different media, how do you cover that all? And we tried to condense it, and we knew it would be only a summary. It's really, despite the size, only touching the surface. The amount of work that he produced, and at the same time of extraordinary quality, is mind-boggling. And he's always shifting styles. He'll invent a style, he'll invent a new style, then he'll work on both of them simultaneously. And he's shifting subjects and media. I hope that's one of the things, this kind of engagement with different types of media and materials is what people will come away with. There's been so much emphasis on Picasso's biography that I think what he actually produced maybe has gotten a little bit, people aren't paying as much attention to it as they need to. But if you just look at, for example, the kinds of paper he used, 18th century antique papers and newspaper, I mean, it's just craft paper, and it's really quite extraordinary what the range of what he would work with. And I want to say one last thing is, it's when you're working on a show like this and it's so big, you often get bogged down in minutia. So I'm looking at these sketchbooks, I'm studying all the sketchbooks for the Demoiselle or the things that he made at the beginning of the Second World War, which I just love, that it's hard to draw one thread from it. And once the exhibition was up and I walked through it, the one lasting impression that I had was Picasso's immense creativity. I mean, it's just, I'm sure that other people will get that reaction too. It's hard to take it all in because it's so vast. But there's that one thread, is that he's always working, and often just for himself. Many of the things that Picasso made, he did not make them for anyone else. He made them just for him. And there's a really great example of that in the show. There's from the Cubist period, there's a pasted paper, papier collé. And I assume most of your listeners will know what a watermark is in a paper. So in a drawing paper, the manufacturer will put their initials or their name. It's embedded in the paper, and you only see it if you hold it up to the light. So Picasso took an antique paper that has that watermark in it. He took two pieces of it. He cut out a paper guitar and he sandwiched it in between those pieces of paper so that you could only see his guitar when you hold that up to the light. Now, he didn't make that to be shown. He made it for himself. And he's often working that way. There are hidden things in his works, messages in the cut pasted papers. And again, his biggest challenge was his own work, and constantly pushing himself to be new and different and to invent. That was his life.
I love that explanation of his process as well. Thank you, William, for that. That's really insightful. Recently I've been having quite a lot of conversations with artists who are feeling conflicted by trying out sort of different things, and they're doing work that is not typically what they're known for example. They feel like it's some kind of deviation. But I love your explanation there of, Picasso making work for himself and just, pushing his own sort of creative boundaries, to develop new work, and not necessarily for an audience, just to see what he could be doing with it. Awesome. So the show opened less than a week ago, and one last question I wanted to put to you was, what do you think will be the most Instagrammed picture of this exhibition?
It's probably that very, very large papier collé, women at the toilet, probably, but you never know. I'll be interested to know. I'll follow it myself, and we'll see.
Okay, my guess was actually going to be the line drawing portrait of Françoise, because
yes, that's a beautiful drawing.
It's amazing, and only because there's a quite famous photograph of Beyonce next to it at the Musée Picasso, isn't there?
Yes, there is. I think different people will take away different things because there's so much there.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that hashtag. William, thank you so much for being my guest on today's podcast.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful.
And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do rate, review and subscribe, because it really does help us get found by more listeners. The Picasso and Paper exhibition runs at the Royal Academy until the 13th of April, and then it moves to the Cleveland Museum of Art from May 25th to August 23rd. And I will add the dates and links to all those venues in the show notes. Thank you.
The Curator's Salon hopes you enjoyed this production.